I've seen too often where people get enamored with a technology and then seek out a problem or opportunity for it rather than focusing on what the actual business case is first and then finding the right solution for it.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Engati CX. I'm your host Aish, and today we have a technology expert on the show with us today. But before I introduce you to our guest, allow me to introduce you to the magic of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual digital CX platform, available across 14 channels with 45,000 solutions created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. They run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 400,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest. Daniel Davidson is an expert in change management. He's passionate about transforming operational and organizational strategy into reality. He is known for his holistic approach in breaking down concepts and placing them together to actionable steps in greatness. His current focus is on digital solutions to transform and accelerate traditional business models. He's also currently leading efforts to identify and execute opportunities from concept to implementation for profitable growth and business transformation. So welcome to the show, Daniel. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Aish. I really appreciate it there.
So before we get into our interview with Daniel, don't forget to subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon to get access to exclusive content from thought leaders from around the globe. So starting with my first question, Daniel, what is your approach to leading digital transformation?
So that's a great question, Aish, and there's never a one-size-fits-all solution to that. So what I'd like to do is I take a step back and think of it not so much as digital transformation, but business transformation there, where I take on the consideration of what are we trying to solve for? So what is your business case there? What are we trying to exploit as a problem to fix or an opportunity to grow or address? And what value do you expect by addressing it? So with that in mind, digital transformation tends to take the approach of focusing around cost reductions or revenue opportunities there. In terms of the drivers for that, cost reduction can take the form of headcount reduction, basic tool reduction, rapid scaling of services at lower cost, better customer targeting and acquisition, increasing your speed to market for new products, new markets, new opportunities, opening new customer distribution channels, as well as having the opportunity to take a more customized or optimized approach to your customer experience there. Once you understand your context and your drivers there, that's where you can actually start to define your measures of success. And from there, take an honest assessment of where your organization is, take your hypothesis of where you want it to be to address your opportunity or problem, and then start figuring out that gap analysis of how you get from where you are to where you want to be, and really starting to take that deep dive of the tactics and tools that will get you the solution to where you want to be there, and then actually plan out that optimized solution to get to where you want to be.
Right. So you mentioned customized solutions. So could you expand on that?
Sure. So we're living in an age where we have a lot of computing power, a lot of storage capacity now, where we're able to gather so much data around customers, product, behavior, etc. And we have some really powerful analytic tools on the market now to start taking a look at that. And so from this, you can actually start developing some customized solutions around internal services and processes within your employees there. You can start creating some more engaging experiences at the end customer level as well without having to rebuild the wheel there, for instance. And you can start putting some a la carte options depending on where the data is leading you with that, and start creating more immersive experiences as the technology gets more and more advanced, and start creating customer experiences that are more delightful for people, that will have them coming back to you as a customer there, that will reduce friction towards transactions there for them, and ideally start helping to address the bottom line either through speed to transaction and reducing costs, increasing engagement to sale, and ideally repeat business as well from that.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned also that as new technologies come about, like more things start to transform. So what more processes start to transform, my bad. So what do you think are the biggest obstacles of digital transformation? Do you think there's some resistance from businesses to transform digitally?
Sure, sure. So there's obviously going to be a lot of obstacles there where there might be a lack of vision at the top. You might not have the talent in place or the proper budgeting. Maybe you don't have a mature change management capability or legacy systems in place. But fundamentally, I think the biggest obstacles is the human resistance to change. It's very hard to change human behavior, and you face that with any change management endeavor there. You see that even more with digital transformation, where these are new innovative solutions that people are unfamiliar with. It creates a little anxiety and fear in people, particularly people who are a little less technology mature in some of these older, more legacy-driven organizations. There may be an unfamiliarity with technology solutions there. There may be a fear of job loss that makes people resistant to engage in the change effort. And there may be a lack of understanding of the underlying processes that really go into it, a lack of the ability to articulate what their actual jobs and processes are. I know in the financial services world and the healthcare worlds, the public sector and education worlds, which I've been in a lot, you often have people who've been in their roles and have historically sat in those roles for 10, 15, 20, sometimes 30 or 40 years, and have never really had to adjust so much. Obviously, that's not as often the case now, but you still see it in these more risk-averse organizations. And so people really don't have a great ability to articulate what they're doing now, what the issues are, and how you would translate that into a repeatable digital kind of experience there.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you. I feel like businesses are kind of scared to digitally transform, especially, I mean, it's not actually, I find that the heads of businesses aren't the ones that are typically terrified of this change and are resistant. It's more the reception from the employees because of that fear of job loss. So how do we kind of communicate and educate employees on how technology can help them?
So just like you would figure out what the business drivers are for doing the project from an organizational point of view, you'd want to understand who your internal stakeholders are, or in the case where you're directly engaging your end customer, what their motivations and incentives are as well. Where I see a lot of these digital transformation efforts go wrong is usually the incentive systems in place are lagging the actual transformation there. And so that adds to the resistance to change. So from an internal business point of view, many business managers at the end customer side are afraid of cannibalizing their businesses. They may be also reluctant to risk the goodwill of their existing employees. As well, they might have some incentives to retain headcount where a digital effort may be making moves to reduce their headcount there. And so companies need to be a little more forward-thinking in creating the right incentive structures to encourage the change that they want there.
Definitely agree with you. So moving on to my next question, do you think digital transformation and change management can be implemented simultaneously? What are the possible implications if something goes wrong?
I think from a personal point of view, I think they necessarily go together. I've seen too often where people get enamored with a technology and then seek out a problem or opportunity for it rather than focusing on what the actual business case is first and then finding the right solution for it. What you'll often see in the former case is that people will create the measures that ensure the success of their project, often to the detriment of the organization, where you'll plug a lot of money into the project. You'll be able to game the system to get the right measures of success that you want, but you might not necessarily be gaining the value that you're hoping to from an overall organizational point of view. In addition, you're also absorbing and spending down a lot of the goodwill of employees and other internal stakeholders that are investing into the change management effort there, the digital transformation efforts there. And that can also cost you with later more necessary transformation efforts you have and take away from your overall success.
How can we go about digitally transforming traditional business models?
So that depends on how you're looking at traditional business models there. So a lot of them are being transformed one way or the other by technology anyway. Some of them are being enhanced by digital. So I'll take a few examples here. Obviously, the whole business model in the communications realm has been completely upended by the digital revolution and innovation there. How many people are picking up a traditional newspaper anymore or a print periodical? How many people are tuning into a TV show when it's actually broadcast versus streaming it at their convenience or picking up a podcast instead and doing things more on demand there. And a lot of people are actually consuming their content through an omni-channel experience across different devices, visually, audio, etc. there. Whereas if you're looking more at, say, the banking experience, the interfaces have gone more digital, but many of the processes are still following more traditional approach. You still have your traditional checking account, your savings account, your investment brokerage accounts, and you have smoother, less handoffs, fewer humans involved in it. But you're still seeing a more traditional business model there that's being facilitated by technology rather than fundamentally transformed by technology there. So you kind of have to piece it together with where the market is at that point in time. We're seeing in the COVID crisis right now a forced transformation for many different business models into the digital realm.
Definitely.
One that's very direct with me is, for instance, the education market. In addition to my consulting practice, I also teach as an adjunct part-time at NYU. And around March time, we had about a week to transform into Zoom format to deliver our classes there, which is not just simply a matter of moving from being in front of the classroom to being in front of a camera, but figuring out how to engage an audience that's not present there, how to create different experiences to pull them in when you don't have a physical presence, working through breakout rooms and things such as that, transforming how you would do team exercises when the team can't be co-located together, things like that.
It's challenging to keep both employees and students engaged during these times because obviously a face-to-face interaction isn't the same as a Zoom interaction, for example. While we're doing the best we can, it's still not the same. So it's very important to keep them engaged. I appreciate that you went through a couple of different examples. I feel like the fintech space is the one where we're going to see the most change, and that's what I'm really excited for. especially with like the
Sure.
sorry.
I would say it's not just the fintech space. I would say it's a lot of these risk averse, heavy regulated spaces as well.
Mm-hmm.
I see healthcare being among that. I just mentioned the education market. I see government services falling into that category as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of government sectors also implement these, and from based on someone we talked to earlier, they had told us that it's actually education and government that are the slowest to adapt. So, but surprisingly, we're seeing a lot of these governments adopting these new technologies. Like recently, we had a government from Zambia. They implemented a chatbot to communicate and to establish a form of communication between the government and the citizens. So it's really interesting to see how governments are implementing these technologies.
Yes, absolutely.
Which leads me to my next question. How do you see technology evolving over the next 10 years, and how effective is conversational automation in this era?
Uh, wow. So that's a difficult one. I can speculate, and it'll probably be different 30 days from now, the way the technology is developing and such. But I think you're going to see a continuation of a lot of existing trends. I think AI, as how it's being termed now, will continue to spread, develop, become more ubiquitous. You probably will start to get to the point where it's not even being referred to as AI, but the underlying technologies will certainly just become more embedded as the cost of doing business and standard features in the marketplace for things. So your machine learning algorithms, your natural language processing, et cetera, will be involved. Uh, while cryptocurrency is still having trouble gaining traction in mainstream use there, I think the blockchain technology underlying it will start developing more use cases in the marketplace there as serving as a database of record or ledger of record for chain of custody of different things. So I think what COVID in particular has highlighted to us is a lot of vulnerabilities in the supply chain system we've seen in places. And so I think seeing a lot of people taking a look at blockchain to solve for that and start taking better track of where different items are in the blockchain, where that chain of custody is. I think you'll see that more in closed networks where you're seeing a lot of partnership transactions where it's not efficient to necessarily use the financial systems directly. It might be cheaper to work through a token system internally there. I think you'll start to see it being used in large database applications for possibly public research purposes down the road as well there. I think you're obviously going to see an increasing use in the conversational interface technology market there. Chatbots are here to stay, and I think are going to grow, not only with that initial touch point with the customer for traditional back-end customer service operations. I think you'll start to see it more with internal employee service operations. I think you'll start to see that more as a front-end sales tool for different people. You'll see voice interface equivalents plugged in there as well. Although I think that will develop more slowly than a lot of people hope for. It's just an incredible challenge. Ever since the 1960s, people have been projecting voice interfaces will take over the space, and it's just really complex to overcome all those accents, languages,
Oh, definitely.
the idioms within those languages, speech impediments. People are having a difficult time solving for that. I think on the voice side, you'll see that used more as an additional, for lack of a better term, biometric to serve in multi-factor authentication for trust transactions that you need and to detect fraud and items such as that. I think 5G, what you'll see is that will open a lot of technologies up. Maybe not so rapidly in your mobile phone experience, but I think more in that Internet of Things. It's going to really empower a lot of the smart devices and sensor-enabled devices, accessories that we're starting to carry around with us and will become more ubiquitous with people, so that people will be engaging with their systems in a completely different way than how we see it now. How that will be is hard to project, but for instance, next to where I was working before COVID, we had an Amazon Go market pop up where you just walk in, pick up your stuff, and walk out, where it's not only checking you out, it's picking up your movements, seeing what items you're engaging with, which you're not, detecting shelf space, where to stock, things like that. So I think you'll see a lot of companies and systems applications start picking up on how to use these sensor-enabled devices to help develop experiences for people that are sensitive to the environments that are surrounding those people, the locations those people are in, detecting the behaviors those people are exhibiting in those different environments and different conditions as well as picking up on the actual body measurements in terms of breathing rates, temperature, and such like that, to see what state of mind people are in and how they might be more receptive to engagement for certain things as well there. You'll certainly see that get more incorporated with connected vehicles as well, as we see more automation in that front there. And I think as much as it seems like we're always technology on and plugged in now, I think that's going to increase. You see Elon Musk working on Neuralink now. I don't think that's going to happen in the next year, probably the next 5 years. But who knows? 10 years from now, you might start seeing some mild applications for that and seeing where that starts trending as well.
Really cool.
And in my space, where you're really seeing that, I should say, going like gangbusters, is in the RPA space, robotic process automation, whereas companies identify more and more repeatable processes with definable business logic. The consulting firms and outsourcing firms are already hitting this like gangbusters. Larger companies are looking in-house how to incorporate these tools more. And again, that incorporates into some of these conversational interfaces and chatbots that we talked about before, where those are sometimes the trigger points for some of these processes that are not batch operated or scheduled already. As the machine learning gets more sophisticated and can pick up on more of these triggers more easily, you'll start seeing more and more processes fall under that, as well as when you have more data falling into these data libraries within the machine learning algorithms, you'll get smarter and smarter, quote unquote, for how to react and how to process things more easily and expand out the processes that can be addressed with that and smooth out those workflows.
That's really exciting stuff. Like, I'm really looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Daniel, are there any other sound bites you'd like to leave our audience with?
So I think digital transformation sounds sexy, and technology forward is something people are looking at. But how I always approach taking a look at these opportunities is always looking at addressing the challenge or opportunity as people, process, and then technology in that order. I think it's always important to remember to keep that human element at the center of what you're looking at for your opportunity and your transformation considerations there. And whether that stakeholder is an employee, an external customer, an internal customer, supplier, partner, always trying to figure out how to align those incentives with that stakeholder there to make sure that you're getting the behavior you want. I think in large companies, there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, legacy inertia to not change. And so there needs to be a way to try and fail quickly. In some of the organizations, I've dealt with, there's the continuous improvement model, plan, do, check, act, which tends to be a philosophy people try to do in isolation. There's also the idea of test and learn. But I think innovation should not be a separate function of these organizations, but there should be little pockets allowing for failures in these larger organizations to experiment and then push the transformation at all levels rather than having it happen in silos there. And I think there's a lot of opportunities within the digital transformation field, especially in those slower to move marketplaces we mentioned that are a little more subject to risk aversion and change. But I think we also have to give consideration to the unintended consequences, the good and the not so good, to figure out where it's going to lead and make sure that as we push our technology to converge to our needs and the technology actually transforms how we behave, we figure out what those consequences are and make sure that we're pushing it in a direction that we're thinking of deliberately there.
Definitely. I completely agree with you. Thank you so much, Daniel, for giving us your time and for your wonderful insights. They were really valuable, and I know our audience is really going to enjoy this interview. So we'll be back with
My pleasure.
Sorry. We'll be back with a new episode with a brand new expert soon. So stay tuned, and we'll see you around for the next one. Thank you so much once again.
You're welcome.